This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, take two. Welcome back, everyone. Back to our first share of the Nuzman. We're streaming live from the shul. Unfortunately, we're not able to have minyanim. We're not able to get together for tefillah. Really, we're not able to get together at all. But we're able to video the shiur from the shul. We want to dedicate tonight's learning L'ilui Nishmas Shifra Bas Ruvain Lev, Isha Chashuva, who's niftaras this past Shabbos, I believe, and also a classmate of mine who Nebuch passed away at the age of 39. He was niftar very recently from this dreaded virus. Yehuda Aryeh ben Menachem Mendel. Actually, Menachem Mendel was my 6th grade Rebbe in Yeshiva Tar Tamima. So we hope all the neshamas of Klal Yisrael who are taken at this time as karbanos, they should have an aliyah, be melitza yesharim for their mishpachos and for all of Klal Yisrael. So we've just completed the season of Pesach, but nevertheless, amazingly, we're about to encounter a new Yom Tov, so to speak. Rosh Chodesh. It's almost Rosh Chodesh. Iyar, we know Iyar stands for Ani Hashem Roifecha. So we hope it's a month of Yeshuas, Refuas, Nachamos, Lanu L'Chol Yisrael. And we want to examine a number of things in the liturgy of the Rosh Chodesh davening. And if you're joining us tonight, you must have great zuchus avos, because what we're about to learn tonight is mamish oyam v'noira lo yu'uman ki yisubar. You must have had your grandmothers must have davened well for you to be zoicha to hear these tremendous chidushim. We say in the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh the following nusach: Avas olam tavi lahem uv'risavahais labanim tizkar. Eternal love, please bring to them, and the covenant of the fathers remember for the children. A beautiful lashon. We ask Yevon Sham, please bring to the Jewish people eternal love. Now that's a beautiful tefillah. It's got nothing to do with Rosh Chodesh. Why do we pray on Rosh Chodesh? Ahavas olam tavi lahem. Furthermore, ubris avois labonim tizkar. And the covenant of the fathers remember for the sons. What exactly does this refer to? Certainly, we always want God to remember the covenant of the forefathers, but why invoke this specifically on Rosh Chodesh? So we have in number 2, number 1, Ma Hamashmoy Shel Tefillah Zu. What is the implication of this tefillah? And furthermore, a question that I've been thinking about is, we know that when Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh coincides, and we have the confluence of Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, so we have a special nusach. And interestingly, in that nusach, we do not say the tefillah, and we don't say the stanza, Ahavas olam tavi lohem ubris avos labanim tizkar. So why do we say it on a regular Rosh Chodesh, and why do we omit it on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh? That's question number 1. Next, for the Musaf of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, we have a new liturgy. Ato yatzarto olamcha mikedem kilisa melachtecha. You created your world from yesteryear. Okay, Shkayach, we all know that. Before we were born, God created the world. We know that God created the world from way back. What does that have to do with Rosh Chodesh? Why do we mention the fact that the world was created from way back in the context of the special nusach of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh? That is question number 3. Question number 4. This is a question we can ask in general, but I happen to have seen it in a kuntris called Umka de Parsha, the depth of the Parsha. And he points out that if you look at the nusach of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, we're not saying a Shabbos dika musaf. The nusach is not Tikanta Shabbos. Tikanta Shabbos, we don't say that. We don't say the regular Shabbos musaf. It's not a Shabbos dika nusach. It's also not a Rosh Chodesh dika nusach. It's not Rosh Chodeshim lamcha nosata zman kapara l'chol taldoisam. So it's not Shabbos. It's not Rosh Chodesh. What is it? If you look carefully, it's Yom Tov. It's a Yom Tov. It's the words are Yom Tov dika nusach. Ahavta oisanu v'ratzisa banu v'roimamtanu mikol alashaynais. It's a Yom Tov dika nusach. Why do we say the Yom Tov Dika Nusach on Rosh Chodesh? on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Either say the Shabbos Nusach or the Rosh Chodesh Nusach. But why do we say the Yom Tov Dika Nusach? I mean, we say, Ulufi Shachatal V'Nacha Anachnu V'Avoseinu Charva Yireinu V'Shamei Meis Mikdasheinu V'Yein Anachnu Cham Lasos Chavesim V'Veis Chirasecha B'Abayis Hagadav HaKadahish Nigushim Chalav Mibnei Ayahad Shenishtacha B'Mikdashecha. That's Yom Tov. That's straight out of the Yom Tov liturgy. But it's not Yom Tov. It's either Shabbos or it's Rosh Chodesh. No, we don't say not a Shabbos Dika Nusach, not a Yom Tov Dika Nusach, not a Rosh Chodesh Dika Nusach. We say Yom Tov. Why? What's up with that? Furthermore, question number 5. This is an amazing question. And that is typically, whenever there's a day that we daven Tfilas Musaf, we always daven the Musaf of that day, even if it's Shabbos. For instance, let's say it's Chol HaMoed. Chol HaMoed requires Musaf. So even if it's Shabbos Chol HaMoed, we daven a Pesach Dika Musaf, and we mention Shabbos Agavorcha. Or Rosh Hashanah, we daven Rosh Hashanah Dika Musaf, and we add in Shabbos Agavorcha. Or any time on a Rosh Chodesh, we daven a Rosh Chodesh Dika Musaf. Musaf is always governed by the reason why we're davening the Karban Musaf, and we sort of make Shabbos backseat. And we don't create a new nusach. For instance, Shabbos Chol HaMoed, we daven a Pesach Dika Musaf or a Sukkot Dika Musaf, and we add in a mention for Shabbos. We don't create a new nusach for Shabbos Chol HaMoed Sukkot, Shabbos Chol HaMoed Pesach. And yet, when it comes to Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, we don't daven a Rosh Chodesh Dika Musaf. We don't even daven a Shabbos Dika Musaf. They've created a new nusach, a Matbeah Chadasha. Ato yotzar to'ilam chami kedem. That's a very rare nusach that we only say twice a year, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. So there are a number of interesting things that we want to ponder. Number 1, what is this tefillah? Ahavas oilam tavi lahem ubris avos labadim tiskar. Number 2, why don't we say it on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh? Number 3, why on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh do we reference that Hashem created the world way back? What's that got to do with anything? Why do we daven a musaf on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh that's primarily a Yom Tov Dika Nusach? And why has this new matbeya been created? Now I'm going to point out another ha'ara, and I'm not going to be answering this ha'ara, but it's once we're on the subject of the nusach for Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, it's worthwhile to point out, it's worthwhile to be aware of the Aruch HaShulchan. In Hilchos Rosh Chodesh, Siman Tav Chaf Hei, he points out that every single time we have musaf on Shabbos, we always say, Kadeshenu b'mitzvaysecha, v'sein chalkeinu b'sarasecha, sabeinu mituvecha, v'samachenu b'shuasecha. This is something we say actually by every single musaf of the whole year. And if it's Shabbos, we add Shabbos. We say, V'hanchileinu Hashem l'keinu b'avaras Shabbos kodshecha, v'yanuchu v'yisam mekadoshei shemecha. When Yom Tov comes out on Shabbos, or Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur comes out on Shabbos, we say what is called Toiref Kedushas Shabbos. V'yanuchu v'yisam mekadoshei shemecha. We say before that, Kadeshenu b'mitzvaysecha, v'sein chalkeinu b'sarasecha. And yet Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, we don't say not Kadshenu b'mitzvaysecha, not v'sein chalkeinu b'sarasecha, not Sabeinu b'tuvecha, not v'samachenu b'shuasecha, not v'hanchilev yanuchu v'ay. Why? What happened to it? Says the Aruch HaShulchan, it appears in Nusach Svard. Now when he says Nusach Svard, he doesn't mean Nusach Svard that Ashkenazim daven. Our shul, we daven Nusach Svard, that's the Nusach of the Tzibor. But rather, he refers to the nusach of the Svardim. The Svardim do say, Kadshenu b'mitzvaysecha, v'sein chalkeinu b'sarasecha, sabeinu mituvecha, v'samachenu b'shuasecha. But says the Aruch HaShulchan, Ashkenazim don't say it. And in my opinion, it's chaser me'atfus, and it's a mistake. I do say it, says Aruch HaShulchan. There's not one Ashkenazic siddur that says it. I say it. There's no reason not to say it. And I have not found anyone who sort of raises this point that there's a nice chunk of the Musaf that somehow got lost in its transfer from regular Shabbos Musaf to Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. And finally, we have our 6th question. On the Musaf for Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, we say like this: Elokeinu v'Elokei Aviseinu. Ritzei v'muchaseinu v'chadesh aleinu b'yom HaShabbos hazeh es hachodesh hazeh l'toivaha v'livracha. It's a very interesting nusach. Think about how we've gone back and forth. Elokeinu v'koseinu ritzei v'muchaseinu Shabbos v'chadesh aleinu Rosh Chodesh. B'yoyim HaShabbos hazeh, Shabbos. Es HaChodesh hazeh. I mean, that expression, Chadesh aleinu b'yoyim HaShabbos hazeh. What do you mean, renew on us on this Shabbos? Nothing is renewed on the Shabbos. It's Shabbos. Whatever renewal is occurring is because it's Rosh Chodesh. It should say, U'b'yoyim HaShabbos hazeh, Chadesh aleinu es HaChodesh hazeh. What's v'chadesh aleinu Rosh Chodesh? B'yoyim HaShabbos hazeh, Shabbos. Es HaChodesh hazeh. Why are we going back and forth? Ritzei v'muchaseinu Shabbos, v'chadesh aleinu Rosh Chodesh. B'yom HaShabbos as a Shabbos, as a Chodesh back to Rosh Chodesh. Make up your mind. What's the day? It seems like it's all twisted. So I want to share with you a halachic discussion, somewhat of a lumdish discussion, and this will really get into the heart and soul of what occurs on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. What's the halacha, friends? If on a regular Shabbos you forget Ritzei, do you have to repeat over Shemayna Esrei? Benching? Of course you do. You must repeat Shemayna benching if you forget Ritzei, Friday night, and Shabbos day. Now, just as an aside, for Shalosh Shudas you don't repeat Ritzei, because there is a minority view you don't have to wash for Shalosh Shudas. And let me take the opportunity to share with you the psak of the Shulchan Aruch that we don't paskin that way. We paskin, you must wash for Shalosh Shudas. In fact, Shulchan Aruch writes that if you eat mezonos for Shalosh Shudas and you are physically capable of washing, you are not yotzei Shalosh Shudas. Whether you're a man or a woman, women must wash and bench for Shalosh Shudas. Oh, my husband doesn't. You have to tell him he has to do it. Tell him to change. Tell him to do tshuva. My 11-year-old son, he has to do it. My 9-year-old daughter, she must do it. Every child over the age of chinuch has to wash 3 times on Shabbos. But when it comes to Ritzei by Shalosh Shudas, for that, if you forget it, we don't go back out of fear of a bracha l'vatala. But let's talk about Friday night and Shabbos day. You must wash, and if you forget Ritzei, you have to bench over. What if you forget Yala v'Yavoy on Rosh Chodesh, on a random Tuesday, on a random Wednesday, on a random Thursday? So do you have to bench over if you forget Yala v'Yavoy? You do not, and the reason is because you don't have to wash and bench on Rosh Chodesh. One is not required to wash and bench. Now here's $1 million question. It's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, and you forgot Ritzei. Obviously, you have to go back. What if you didn't forget Ritzei? What if you forgot Yala v'Yavoy? Oh, I don't have to go back. I don't have to go back and bench again if I forget Yala v'Yavoy and Rosh Chodesh. No, but it's not just Rosh Chodesh. It's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. And I have to eat the Suda. On a regular Rosh Chodesh, I don't have to eat. But now I have to eat because it's Shabbos, but I forgot Yala v'Yavoy. Do I need to go back? Comes the Torah in Siman Kuf Pechas. He cites the sheet of Rabbeinu Yosef. You don't go back. You know why you don't go back? Because since the halacha is you don't go back if you forgot Yala v'Yavoy, even though the reason is because you don't normally have to eat, and now you do have to eat, but it's a rare instance, so therefore the Chazal, for such a rare instance, did not say you have to go back and bench. But here's the real reason, says Rabbeinu Yosef. Granted, you must eat a meal on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, but the reason you need to eat is because it's Shabbos, not because it's Rosh Chodesh. You had no Chiyuv Suda al Rosh Chodesh, and since you had no Chiyuv Suda al Rosh Chodesh, therefore, if you forget Yala v'Yavoy, you don't go back. Because yes, you had to eat, but you weren't eating because it was Rosh Chodesh. So if you forgot Yala v'Yavoy, you don't go back. Comes the Tur, and he says, my brother Rabbeinu Yechiel ben Harash says there are those who argue and say that even though on a regular Rosh Chodesh, if you forget Yala v'Yavoy, you don't go back. If you forget Yala v'Yavoy and Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, you do go back. Says Rabbeinu Yechiel, I am inclined to agree with such a position. You know why? Says Rabbeinu Yechiel, the proof is in the pudding. Here's the example. The proof is, comes Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, you have to daven Ilah. Do you have to daven Ilah on Shabbos? No. It's now Shabbos, Yom Kippur. And you daven the Ilah. And you forgot to mention Shabbos and the Ilah. Do you need to go back? So you'd say, oh, I'd have to go back. I'm not davening Ne'ilah because it's Shabbos, the same way I'm not benching because it's Rosh Chodesh. The halach is you have to go back. Says Rabbeinu Yechiel ben Harash, the same way when Shabbos comes out on Yom Kippur. If you don't mention Shabbos and Ne'ilah, even though you weren't davening Ne'ilah because of Shabbos, but I have to daven Ne'ilah, and since I have to daven Ne'ilah, I must mention Shabbos. So too, if you forget Yalav Yavai on Shabbos or Rosh Chodesh, even though I'm not benching because it's Rosh Chodesh, but once I have to bench because it's Shabbos, I must remember Yalav Yavai. Now apparently Rabbeinu Yosef, who says you don't have to go back, does not accept the analogy and does not compare to Shabbos and Yom Kippur, and says there's a difference between Shabbos and Yom Kippur and Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Now before we proceed, I just want to tell you, the Beis Yosef says the opinion of Rabbeinu Yosef that you don't go back is agreed upon by the Mordechai, and the opinion of Rabbeinu Yechiel is the opinion of the Rashba. And who do we paskin like? Says the Bedek Habayis, Safek Brachas Lahakel, we're going to be making like Rabbeinu Yosef that you don't go back, and that's the Psak of the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Kuf Pei Ches of Ches. But there is a Deya of Rabbeinu Yechiel, and he holds you do go back. Why do you go back? Because he feels that Shabbos falling out on Rosh Chodesh is like Shabbos falling out on Yom Kippur. So what does Rabbeinu Yosef hold? That you don't go back. He has to hold, and this I heard from Rabbi Yonasan Sachs, he has to hold there's a very big difference between Shabbos Yom Kippur and Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. You see, Shabbos and Yom Kippur have very similar kedushas. They have very similar sanctities. Both of their sanctities prohibit melacha. Both of their sanctities prohibit cooking. Therefore, the two sanctities are able to fuse together and join together. And now we say it's not Shabbos today. It's not Yom Kippur today. It's Shabbos, Shabbos, and it's one day. It's the confluence of Shabbos, the fusion of Shabbos and Yom Kippur. But Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh are very different. You're allowed to do malacha on Rosh Chodesh. You're now do malacha on Shabbos. Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh don't fuse together. So therefore, you have what is called two people that happen to come to the same inn. It happens to be Shabbos, it happens to be Rosh Chodesh. If I forget Ritzei, I go back. If I forget Yalav Yavai, you don't go back. That's the opinion of Rabbeinu Yosef. Rabbeinu Yosef says there's no comparison between Shabbos Yom Kippur and Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. But Rabbeinu Yechiel obviously holds there is a comparison between Shabbos Rosh Chodesh and Shabbos Yom Kippur. The same way that if you forget to mention Shabbos in the Ne'ilah when Yom Kippur is Shabbos, we say, look, you blew the Shemana Esrei. Today is not Yom Kippur, today is Shabbos Yom Kippur. Rabbeinu Yechiel clearly holds there is a fusion of Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. Let's try to explain that fusion. Why apparently what we're learning is, and this would explain why there's a matbeya chadasha, a new nusach on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Because it's not just, it happens to be the seventh day of the week, it happens to be the first day of the month, and the two coincidences coincide. No, these two coincidences fuse together to produce a Yom Tif. It's a Yom Tif Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Let's explain that a little bit. So, my good friend Rav Aaron Jacobi, the Oirech Rashi of the Svara Magid Arakia, showed me in a kuntris Heichala put together by Bnei Torah in Har Noif that he quotes in a footnote here, a comment of Rabbi Yonasan David, the son-in-law of Rav Hutner, who brings an amazing thought. We begin as follows. The Gemara in Erechim is discussing why are we required to say Hallel on every day of Sukkot, and we're not required halachically to say a full Hallel on every day of Pesach. And the Gemara says, well, Pesach, each day is the same carbon as the day before, and therefore you don't have to say Hallel Shalem, but Sukkot says Chaluk b'Karban Osayim. Sukkot, you have a different carbon every day, and therefore every day is Yom Tov, and you have to say Hallel. Frek the Gemara, so why don't you say Hallel Shalem on Shabbos? Because Shabbos is Chaluk b'Karban Osayim, it has unique karbanos. So the Gemara says, because it's not called a Moyed. Shabbos is not a Yom Tov, so you don't say Hallel. So Gemara says, what about Rosh Chodesh? Rosh Chodesh is called a Moyed, Rosh Chodesh is a Yom Tov. Says the Gemara, Rosh Chodesh is not Iskadesh b'Yisr Malacha. You're allowed to do Malacha on Rosh Chodesh. So therefore you don't say Hallel. Even though we say it, we only say it al Minhag, but there's no Chiyav Me'ikar Hadin. So Shabbos, you don't say Hallel because it's not a Moyed. Rosh Chodesh, you don't say Hallel because it's not Osir B'Asiyas Malacha, says Rabbi Yonasan David. But Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, it's Osir B'Malacha and it's a Moyed. So each one is mashlim what the other one is missing. So Shabbos gives it its Kedusha of Isser Malacha. Rosh Chodesh gives it Kedusha al Tzmoyed. And now it fuses together. So even though we don't say Hallel Shalem, but there's a new Nusach HaTfilah. It becomes a Yom Tif. It's the Yom Tif of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, and therefore there's a Matbeah Chadasha. We say the Yom Tif Dika Nusach, and there's even a new liturgy that has been composed by the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah. Let's try to explain this a little bit further of the fusion between Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. Now I want to share with you a very nice yediyah. In the Sefer Marganisa Tava, Marganisa Tava is a work of ethical suggestions that is printed in the back of the Sefer, Ahavas Chesed. He says that every Shabbos, you should think about the Kedusha of Shabbos, and don't forget about it. Like it says, Zachar Yom HaShabbos L'Kadshay. Likewise, on Yom Tif, don't forget about the Kedusha of Yom Tif. Don't remove the Simcha from your heart, because Shabbos is an ois, and Yom Tif is an ois. And you have to be careful not to forget about their respective Kedushas. Says the Marganisa Tava, and Rosh Chodesh also, you should think about the Kedusha of Rosh Chodesh, because it's a Yom Tif Da'iraisa. You hear this? This is what we just learned from the Gemara. Rosh Chodesh is a Moyed. It's a Moyed Da'iraisa. It's a Yom Tif Meda'iraisa. It's just you're allowed to do Malacha. But it's a Yom Tif Meda'iraisa, and therefore on Rosh Chodesh we need to contemplate the Kedusha of Rosh Chodesh. In fact, the Gra and the Evan Shlema brings from Tikkunei Zohar that any day a year that you daven Musaf, you have Neshama Yisera. You don't have Neshama Yisera on Chanukah, you don't have Neshama Yisera on Purim, but you have Neshama Yisera on Rosh Chodesh because you daven Musaf. And Hashem led me to a certain Chidah. And I think this Chidah will answer a very important Ha'ara on the Tefillah of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Says the Chidah, we know there's a mitzvah to be marbe in Sudas Rosh Chodesh, Siman Taf Yotes in Shulchan Aruch. Says the Chidah, there is Kedusha on Rosh Chodesh. And even though the Kedusha of Yom Tif is greater than Rosh Chodesh, but there is a Maila of Rosh Chodesh more than Yom Tif. You want to hear what it is? Says the Chidah. On Shabbos, Gehenim shuts down. The Risham get a reprieve from Gehenim. On Yom Tif, it doesn't shut down. But on Rosh Chodesh, the Gehenim closes. So Rosh Chodesh is like Shabbos and not like Yom Tif. That both Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, Gehenim is closed. Furthermore, says the Chidah, you know why? Rosh Chodesh is like Shabbos. Because Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, Hunchalu miyom shenivra ha'olam. Because from the day God created the world, there was Kedusha Shabbos and Kedusha Rosh Chodesh. It was programmed into the natural world. There is the 7th day of the week and there's the 1st day of the month. So Kedusha Shabbos and Kedusha Rosh Chodesh started and began from Brias Ha'olam, not Yom Tif. Yom Tif's Kedusha did not come until God performed miracles for Klal Yisrael. He took us out of Egypt, He gave us Sukkos, He gave us the Torah. Kedusha of Yom Tif came later. Kedusha of Shabbos, Kedusha of Rosh Chodesh, you know when it came? Ata yatzarta olamcha mikedem ki lisa melachtecha b'yom hashvi. Perhaps we could explain according to the Chidah. Firstly, we asked, why does Rabbeinu Yechiel compare Ne'ilah on Shabbos Yom Kippur to Yalav V'Yavai on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh? Yom Kippur and Shabbos are the same Kedusha. Rosh Chodesh and Shabbos are not the same. No, but now we're learning from the Chidah, they are the same. Both days Gehenim is shut down. Both days its Kedusha began from time immemorial, from the day Hashem created the world. Therefore, both of their Kedushas are able to fuse together, and perhaps that's the reason why in our liturgy we say, Ata yatzarta olamcha mikedem, the Kedusha of Shabbos and the Kedusha of Rosh Chodesh began already from the beginning of Brias Ha'olam. So now I want to share with you one more Nakuda, and then we're going to revolutionize forever your understanding of Rosh Chodesh and Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. The Gemara in Zvachim on Sadi Amid Beis poses the following question. What's more valuable? Tadir or Mekudash? Frequency or sanctity. So Gemara wants to bring a raya. Well, on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, first you bring the Musaf of Shabbos, then you bring the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. And the Gemara says that proves that Tadir of Shabbos is greater than Mekudesh of Rosh Chodesh. The Gemara is saying Rosh Chodesh is holier even than Shabbos. Rashi explains, because Rosh Chodesh is a Moed, Shabbos is not a Moed. The Avnei Nezer says, according to this Svara, it would come out that we have a new understanding of why in the Haftarah of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, we're going to learn, V'haya midei Chodesh b'chadshai, o midei Shabbos b'shabbatai, yavai chabasar, l'hishtachavois lefanai, amar Adonai. First we say midei Chodesh b'chadshai, and then we say midei Shabbos b'shabbatai. Why do we mention Rosh Chodesh before Shabbos? Says the Avnei Nezer, because like Rashi explains the Gemara in Zvachim, Rosh Chodesh is greater than Shabbos in a certain sense. The Chassam Sofer explains further, al pi machshava, that the Rishonim say when the pasuk ends, Yavai chalbasar l'hishtachavos, that in the future all Gashmias will bow to Ruchnias. Tadir, says the Chassam Sofer, is a physical svara, a Gashmiistic svara. Whatever comes first, even if it's not so holy, whatever comes more frequently. Mekodesh is a sanctified svara. But since Rosh Chodesh is more is holier than Shabbos, so la'asulavai, when all Gashmias bows to Ruchnias, it will be midei Chodesh b'chadshai. First comes the sanctity, and then comes the Tadir. But here we're learning that there's in a way, Rosh Chodesh is even holier than Shabbos, but I don't want to sidetrack, because the main point I'm bringing out is there is a commonality between Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. They both existed. Ata yotzarta olamcha mikedem. There's a tshuva in the Rama Mipano in Siman Ayin Tes. He says a davar nifla, that the Nevi'im compared Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh in many places. One we just read, V'haya midei Chodesh b'chadshai, midei Shabbos b'shabbatai. On both days the Gehenim shuts down, and also there's a pasuk in Yechezkel, Parak Mem Vav, pasuk Aleph, Kayamar Hashem Leikim. The Shar HaChatzar HaPnimis, HaPoina Kadim, is closed the whole week, is opened on Shabbos, Ubiyayim HaShabbos Yipasach, Ubiyayim HaChodesh Yipasach. So we're trying to bring out that in a way, the same way Shabbos and Yom Kippur fused together in Shitas Rabbeinu Yechiel, they also fuse Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh fused together. It's not that, this Shabbos, it happens to be the 7th day of the week, and it happens to be Rosh Chodesh. It's an entirely new day. Firstly, as we mentioned, because Shabbos provides the Isser Malacha, Rosh Chodesh provides the Moed, and together, there's almost a Chiyuv Hallel. Well, we don't say Hallel Shalem, but at least we have a new Nusach, a Yom Tov Dika Nusach, and it's a new day that there is an opinion that if you forget Yalav Yava, you would repeat it again. Again, we don't paskin that way. But Marv Rabbeisai, fasten your seatbelts. Hold on to your socks. Hold on to your masks and your gloves. This is an amazing nekuda. I want to again thank my friend Rabbi Aaron Jacobi. He told me this idea in the name of a Rebbe of his, one of the great Rosh Yeshiva, Shmuel Yaakov Bornstein. But I found this is also said in many svarim, including Rav David Cohen of the Beis Knesset Gevol Yavitz. The Tur in Siman Taf Yud Zayin says something in the name of his other brother. So he quoted in Siman Kuf Peches his brother Rabbeinu Yechiel, but in Siman Taf Yud Zayin he quotes Rabbeinu Yehuda. Rabbeinu Yehuda, and I want to thank Rabbeinu Yehuda Glatstein on the video camera, because of social distancing I can only get someone who lives in the same roof. So I want to thank my chashuva son Yehuda Glatstein for manning the camera. Now, the Torah says like this. Many women have a custom not to do certain malachas on Rosh Chodesh. Why? Says the Torah, originally Rosh Chodesh was a Yom Tov for the men and the women. But when we sinned with the Egel, it was given to the women. But then the Torah says, let me tell you how my brother explains this. My brother Rabbeinu Yehuda explains that the 3 regalim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, correspond to the 3 avos. Pesach corresponds to Avraham. As Avram Avinu served the Malachim on Pesach, he said, Lushi v'asi ugos. Shavuos corresponds to Yitzchak, because the Ayel of Matan Torah came from the Ayel of Yitzchak, and Sukkos corresponds to Yaakov, like the pasuk says, Ula miknehu asa Sukkos. And what about the 12 months of the year? The 12 months of the year are also a moyed, like the Gemara in Erechim said. And who were they given it to? Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the Avos? No! They were given to the Shvatim, the Banim. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, Dan, after 12 months of the year were given to the 12 Shvatim. Rosh Chodesh is a Yom Tov for the Shvatim, but when they sinned with the Egel, it was taken from them. So it used to be a Yom Tov for the Banim, but it's not a Yom Tov for the Banim anymore. The Yom Tov for the Avos, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, Yom Tov for the Avos. Yom Tov for the Banim, no Yom Tov for the Banim anymore. Only the Nashim, but not the men. Comes Arizal in the Pri-Eitz Chaim, quoted by Rav Chaim Vital. This is also brought in the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, in the Zois HaBracha, Parak Lamed Gimel, Pasuk Gimel. Says the holy Arizal, Yismach Moshe b'matnas chelkai. Every Shabbos we say Moshe should rejoice in the gift of his chelek. Get ready for this. You could be down in the dumps because of this virus. When you hear this, you're going to be so besimcha, you're going to forget about all your travails. You're going to be jumping for joy when you hear this. Says the Arizal that when Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe was given 1,000 sparks of light. This is alluded to in the big Aleph of Divrei Hayomim, Adam, Sheis, Enosh. There's a big Aleph. Aleph is also Elef, 1,000. The Noda B'Yehuda writes in his Akdama, Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3, Dalet is 4, Yud is 10, Kuf is 100, Reish is 200, Shin is 300, Taf is 400, final Chaf is 500, final Mem is 600, final Nun is 700, final Pei is 800, final Tzadi is 900. And what's 1,000? Aleph is back to Elef. Aleph is 1,000. The big Aleph of Divrei Hayamim. But when we sinned with the Egel, Moshe lost 999 points of light. He only had 1 point of light. That's the small Aleph of Vayikra, friends, says the Ari. But it's not fair. Moshe didn't sin. Why should he lose all 999 points of light? So you know what God did? God said, the Jewish people had crowns of light at Har Sinai when they said Na'aseh v'Nishma. When they sinned with the Egel, God took away their crowns and He gave it to Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe's got his light back. But, says the Ari, every Shabbos, God returns to Moshe his chelek. So now Moshe could be singing. I'm in the money. He could be singing, I cashed in. I have the Jews 999 crowns, points of light. I have back my chelek, because on Shabbos God gives Moshe Rabbeinu back his chelek. Yismach Moshe matnas chelkoi. So he now has 2,000 points of light. No! Ki even neman karasalai. Moshe is a faithful servant, and he gives Klal Yisrael through Kedushas Tosefes Shabbos. He gives us our crowns back. You know why? Ki even neman karasalai. What is the chelek of Moshe? Kalil Tiferes Asher B'Roshei Nosata B'Amda Fanech Har Sinai. The crown that Moshe was given, that was 1,000 points of light, is the chelek of Moshe on Shabbos, and therefore he gives us back our light. You know what we learn from here? By the way, in the Kunshas Heichal Zayin, he brings that this is the smicha, so the end of Kisisa, the light that radiated from Moshe, and the beginning of Vayakel, where Moshe teaches Klal Yisrael about Shabbos. Because through Shabbos, Moshe got his light back. Says the Sfas Emes in Parsha Shkolim, Tafresh Lamed Beis. From here, we learn that if Moshe Rabbeinu gives Klal Yisrael their crowns back of Na'aseh v'Nishma on Shabbos, the Chet HaEgel has no dominion on Shabbos. There's no Chet HaEgel on Shabbos. Listen to this, friends. Really, Rosh Chodesh is a Yom Tov. Who is it a Yom Tov for? It's a Yom Tov for the Banim, the 12 Shvatim. But it was taken away from us. Why? Because of the Chet HaEgel. But there's one day a year that we're not impugned by the Chet HaEgel, Shabbos. So if Shabbos ever came out on Rosh Chodesh, if Rosh Chodesh ever joined together with Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh would be restored to its original status of the Yom Tov, and it would be a Yom Tov for the Banim. And therefore on Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh is restored to its former glory. Says Reb David Cohen, this is why the Nusach of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh starts with Ato Yotzarta. is all a nusach of Yom Tif. Why are we davening a Yom Tif Tika nusach? Because when Rosh Chodesh comes out on Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh is restored to the level of Yom Tif that it belonged to the Banim. Rosh Chodesh originally was a Yom Tif, but it was taken away because of the Chedo Egel. But on Shabbos, when we're not impugned by the Chedo Egel, Rosh Chodesh is restored to its former glory. So in a footnote in Heichala, he brings from his father-in-law, who I don't know who that is, he says, Oyoim v'noira, this is the tefillah. On a regular Rosh Chodesh, we say, Avas oilam tavilhem, God, you took Rosh Chodesh away from Klal Yisrael because of the Chedo Egel. We lost it. We took it away from ourselves. We don't have your Avas oilam. Please bring back your Avas oilam. Please restore Rosh Chodesh to its former glory, so that just like on a regular Yom Tov we scream out, Ahavta oisanu. So beautiful to say those words, but we can't say that on Rosh Chodesh, Ahavta oisanu, because it was taken away, the Ava was taken away. So we say, Avas oilam tavi lohem, ubris avais, and that Ava that you have with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov through Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, Ubris avais, labonim tiska, remember it for the banim, remember it for the shvatim, restored to Klal Yisrael, to the 12 shvatim, the Yom Tov status of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. So then I realized, wait a second, it comes out kaftar v'ferch, it's mamish mosoik midvash, could be licking your chops. You know what's the one thing we don't say on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh? We don't say, Avas oilam tavi lahem, Rebbeinu Shalom, bring back your love. You know why? We don't need to. We could say, Ahavta oisanu v'ratzisa banu. Rebbeinu Shalom, today you love us, because today you give us the full shower of your love, because today has been restored to the former glory of Rosh Chodesh before it was impugned by the Egel. In fact, Sasemes quotes from the Yalkut, La'asad lavai Rosh Chodesh is going to be a Yom Tif, there's going to be a Chiyuv of Aliyah l'regel. And therefore it comes out so beautiful. And I thought of this, and this is also pointed out in the Sefer Umka de Parsha. We don't need to say Avas Oilam Tavi Lahem Bris Avos Labanim Tizkar on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, because we don't need to say Avas Oilam Tavi Lahem, because we could say better Ahavta Oisanu. We don't say Ubris Avos Labanim Tizkar because today Rebbeinu Shalom has remembered the bris to the banim, and it's been restored to its former glory. This explains, Rabbi Isai, the meaning of the tefillah Avas Oilam Tavi Lahem, where on a regular Rosh Chodesh we ask Rebbeinu Shalom, please Hashem, restore the glory of Rosh Chodesh, show us your Ahava that was taken away by the Chedo Egel, Ubris Avos Labanim Tizkar, the same way we ask, that the same way Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot is connected to the Avos, please restore the Rashi Chadashim Keneged the Banim. We explain that's why we say Ato Yotzarta Oilamcha Mikedem, because the reason why Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh could fuse together is because they have similar kedushas. What's the similar kedusha of Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh? They both existed before, from the beginning of creation. And this, Rabbi says, why we have a Yom Tov Dika Nusach, because on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, the kedusha of Rosh Chodesh was restored to its Yom Tov Dika status, and that's why there's a Matbeah Chadasha. It's a new Yom Tov. It's not Shabbos. It's not Rosh Chodesh. It's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. We're going to come back and answer the sixth question in a bit. I just want to speak out a little bit of Lamdas, and then we'll sum it up. In the Yesod V'Shar HaAvodah, one of the classic Musar Sfarim, he says, when you say these words, Ahavta Oisanu, V'ratzisa banu, V'raimamtanu mikal ha'lashaynais, certainly it is worthy for a person to tear their hearts into 12 rippings and 12 tearings. Why does he say you should tear your heart into 12 pieces? We know the Yesod V'Shar HaAvodah is a very emotional sefer, and it speaks about the hislavos and hislatos a yid should have in Avodas Hashem. But why specifically into 12 pieces? What he's referring to is the fact that Rosh Chodesh is connected to 12 Shvatim, but we lost it. And therefore when you say these words, on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, a taste of the former glory of Rosh Chodesh, you should split your hearts into 12. Feel for all the 12 Shvatim who have lost the Kedusha of Rosh Chodesh. He says, when you say the words, V'sham nasa as karbonois chayvosenu, you should be moirid dema'is when you say this nusach, and be mispalel in your mind from the recesses of your heart that Hashem should restore His former love, like for the binyan Beis Hamikdash, and says the Yisod V'shar Shavoida, this is the Iker Shoyresh of Tfilas Musaf. The main purpose of Tfilas Musaf is for a person to cry and beg Hashem to restore the Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. Now, this whole idea is predicated on the Yisod that two Kedushas could fuse together. You could have a Shabbos, you could have Rosh Chodesh, but you're not going to say Tikanta Shabbos, and you're not going to say Rosh Chodashim Lamcha Nasata. You're going to say Ata Yatzarta, because the two Kedushas fuse together. But in Lamdas, this is a very debatable point, whether two Kedushas could really fuse together and produce one powerful Kedusha. Because the Avnei Nezer says, and we sort of glossed over this, the Avnei Nezer and Shuvas Yoredei, some tough non-aleph of Katan Tesvav, the Avnei Nezer says, L'chaira, from the Gemara in Erechin, that we try to prove they do fuse together, it shows they don't fuse together. Because the Gemara in Erechin says, so say Halal on Shabbos, no, it's not a Moed. So say Halal on Rosh Chodesh, no, it's not Asur B'Malacha. So why don't you say Halal Shalem on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh? It's a Moed and it's Asur B'Malacha. Must be. Rosh Chodesh is a Moed. Shabbos is Asur B'Malacha. But you don't have both of them coming together and having one Siba for Isser Malacha and Moed. Says Avnei Nezer, this shows two Kedushas don't fuse together. So we said, well, it only fuses together regarding the Nusach HaTfilah. Says Avnei Nezer, no, but then you should say Halo Shalem. But he says it's a tzarech iyun, because the Gemara in Pesachim says the chelev of a shar haniskal is a pircha that it's asr ba'achila and it's asr ba'hana. Says Avnei Nezer, what do you mean? The chelev is asr ba'achila. The shar haniskal isser is asr ba'hana. But how do they just fuse together? There are two dimensions of this animal. It's the chelev of a shar haniskal. No, the Gemara says the chelev of shaniskal is asar bahana uv achila. That means the two isurim fuse together. And then Avnei Nezer leaves it off as a tzarech iyun. So this point is in Lamdas a very challenging point and a very questionable point, whether you could say that two independent kedushas fuse together to produce a brand new kedusha. But the Ar Sameach paskins that two kedushas do fuse together, and he brings a raya from the Gemara in Zvachim that we mentioned earlier. The Gemara in Zvachim asks, and Yehuda, this is what you said your bar mitzvah pshatal on. The Gemara wants to know what comes first, Mekudash or Tadir? And the Gemara says, I'll prove to you Tadir comes first, because the Musaf of Shabbos comes before the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. Shabbos is Tadir, Rosh Chodesh is Mekudash. So we see Tadir comes before Mekudash. The Gemara answers, you think the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, only the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh is a Rosh Chodesh Dika Carbon, and the Musaf of Shabbos is not also a Rosh Chodesh Dika Carbon. So it's not that Shabbos is Tadir, it's also Mekudash, because it's not just the Musaf of Shabbos, it's also the Musaf of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Says Ar Sameach, from here we learn that when Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh come together, it's not just Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, it's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. It's not the Musaf of Shabbos, and then there's another Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. The Musaf of Shabbos is also a Rosh Chodesh Tika Musaf. And based on this, the Ar Sameach paskins that when Shabbos comes out on Yom Kippur says you're not allowed to eat. The Kedusha of that Yom Kippur makes it that even the Kedusha of Shabbos says you're not allowed to eat. The two Kedushas fuse together, and even Shabbos doesn't require Achila. And therefore, Paskins are Sameach. A Chayla sheyesh boi sakana that must eat on Shabbos Yom Kippur doesn't make Kiddush, because even Kedusha Shabbos is not a Kedusha of Kedusha Achila, because it fuses together with the Kedusha of Yom Kippur, and since the Kedusha of Yom Kippur is not Mechayev Achila, the Kedusha of Shabbos is not Mechayev Oineg either. And based on this Or Sameach, Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach has a very interesting chiddush. Let me tell you a story and we'll wrap it up. Says Reb Moshe Feinstein in the Igros Moshe Archaim Dalet Siman Ayin Oisya Dalet. It's Shabbos Yom Tif, and you're learning the Haftarah, And in the bracha of the Haftarah, you said, Ala Torah, Ve'ala Voidah, Ve'anaviyim, Ve'al Yom HaShabbos Hazeh, and you forgot to say Eschag HaMatzos Hazeh. So you have to go back and say it again, and say, L'chadchila, Ala Torah, Ve'ala Voidah, Ve'anaviyim, Ve'al Yom HaShabbos Hazeh, Ve'yom Chag HaPesach Hazeh. But b'di'evet, if you just say Yom Chag HaPesach Hazeh, you're Yotzei, because you already said Shabbos the first time. L'chadchila, you should say both. Likewise, let's say somebody davened a Shabbos Dika Tefillah, and then he forgot to mention Yom Tif. Let's say it's Shabbos Yom Tif, so you're supposed to say Atav Chartanu, mention Shabbos. You just said Shabbos, so now you have to go back and daven Yom Tif. If when you daven Yom Tif you forgot Shabbos, you're Yotzei because you already got Shabbos the first time. But says Rav Moshe Chidosh, when I was a Rav in Luban, Russia, there were a number of people incarcerated and imprisoned. The government wanted money out of them. And it was Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. And the government didn't let them bring Sidurim into the cell. And these people were Tamir Chacham, they didn't know the Musaf of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Baal Peh. They knew the Musaf of regular Shabbos Baal Peh. Rav Moshe paskined for them, he says, I paskin for them, Davin Shabbos Dika Musaf. Because when it comes to Karbanos, the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh is not Ma'akiv, the Musaf of Shabbos. So when it comes to Tefillah, the mentioning Rosh Chodesh and Musaf is not Ma'akiv. Davin Tikanto Shabbos. And if you get out of jail today, just daven Rosh Chodesh Dika Musaf. And it could be, when you daven the Rosh Chodesh Dika Musaf, you don't have to mention Shabbos. Says Reb Shlomo Zalman in the Halicha Shloima and Rosh Chodesh, Perak Aleph, Amad Yud Archas Halacha number 55, that according to the Ar Sameach, Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh fuse together. Even if you would have davened the Shabbos Dika Musaf, if you get out of jail, you daven now, not just the Rosh Chodesh Dika Musaf. Because it's not just Rosh Chodesh. Kedusha Shabbos, Kedusha Rosh Chodesh, fused together, as the Gemara in Zavachim is mashma, Otu Rosh Chodesh, L'musafin Didei Ahani, L'musaf Shabbos Lo Yahani. Rosh Chodesh makes it that even the Musaf of Shabbos is a Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Dika Musaf. And based on this idea, Rabbi Yonasan David explains why in the Musaf of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh we say Elokeinu Makavasenu V'Tzim Nechasenu V'Chadesh Aleinu B'Yom HaShabbos Hazeh. V'Chadesh Aleinu B'Yom HaShabbos Hazeh. V'Chadesh Aleinu Es HaChodesh Hazeh. Why are we saying that the Chidush should be on Shabbos? The answer is we're learning that we are about to encounter a unique day on the calendar. Twice a year we are Zoiche to the Achros Hayomim. And that is why the Haftarah of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh is the Haftarah of Achros Hayomim. And that's why we paskin that if Rosh Chodesh Elul is Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, you don't lay in the Shiva Dinechemta, because the greatest Nechama is Rosh Chodesh Shabbos, because this is a day out of the future. We are about to experience a Yom Tif, not just a Shabbos, not just a Rosh Chodesh. Shabbos Rosh Chodesh is a Yom Tif with a new matbeya of Atayot Sarta. We're mispalel the Chodesh Aleinu b'Yom HaShabbos Hazeh. The Chiddush is even on Shabbos. And while on a regular Rosh Chodesh we say Ribono Shel Olam, you've given us Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot Tiva Avos, but now Ahavas Olam Tavi Lahem, bring us back your Ava. Ubris Avos Labonim Tizkar. On Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, we don't have to be mispalo, Bris Avos Labanim Tizkar. We could scream, we could shout emphatically, Ahavta Oisanu. Today you love us. Today, in fact, you were Zoicher, the Bris Avos Labanim. Wishing everyone Afreilichin, good in Shabbos Rosh Chodesh.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.